Welcome back to Gone Wandering as we continue our journey across the Louisiana coastline. Let's start off in Lafayette with a bayou tour from Cajun Swamp Tours.
Most of them are called a bald cypress. Now, a cypress tree is very closely related to a redwood. All the traits are similar. It's the oldest cypress tree recorded was 3,000 years old, so they can get just as old. And the biggest one is 54 feet in diameter, so that means they can get just as big. It's also a softwood. They have needles for leaves. They secrete a resin called cypressine that keeps the wood from rotting, keeps the bugs out, just like a redwood secretes a resin. Now, when we call this a bald cypress and people see the needles of this tree, they're usually associated with an evergreen, which would be what they call a coniferous tree. It would stay green year round. And then they see the balls in the tree. So a lot of people think it's a B-A-L-L cypress. But it is one of very few trees with needles that are deciduous. Their leaves change color in the fall when they fall off. So it's a B-A-L-D cypress, not the A-L-L. It's our state tree. There's a turtle. Now, my general rule I found over the years is that if I can find you 4 turtles, I can almost guarantee you we're going to find an alligator. I done seen 6 of them.
Although we have years of outdoor adventures, this was nothing like we've ever seen before. As our guide navigated the swamps with ease, we enjoyed the wildlife. One thing which really struck me was how quiet it was, with only the occasional bird sounds. Our tour stuck mostly to the banks, to the edge of this lake. In the middle there, it was just a lake, so we stuck mostly to the edge. But I can imagine how easy it would be to get completely turned around in amongst all these trees. Speaking of the trees, isn't that moss fascinating? It just hangs everywhere. So we arrived in Baton Rouge on Sunday, and everything was closed. So we walked around the mostly empty town for a while. Returning on Monday, we started off by touring the old state capitol building. They have actually 2 of them. Originally, the state capitol was in New Orleans, but in 1845, the legislature approved moving it to Baton Rouge. In 1847, the groundbreaking was finally held, although most of the speeches were canceled after somebody gave a 2-hour speech. They never said who. The first repairs started just 2 years later in 1850 from all the senators spitting tobacco on the floors. Then in 1862, Union soldiers accidentally set it on fire. In 1965, Hurricane Betsy damaged it. Then more repairs came in 1972, 74, and the last ones were done in 1991. This has quite the past for a building. This is the new Capitol building, where we heard a fascinating story of how Huey Long was responsible for many shady deals. Although those shady deals resulted positively in the state, they were expensive and very elaborate. However, as a result of many of these deals, and in the midst of one of them specifically, he was gunned down right in one of the hallways. Welcome to the Oak Valley Plantation, where we get to tour the grounds, the slave quarters, but we don't get to take any photos inside. Sorry about that. These are some of the slave quarters here. This first one is a gal by the name of Pagan. She was a seamstress, and essentially she was at their beck and call to brush their hair and mend their clothes. This is her living quarters here. Now, unlike the first slave quarters we looked at, you'll notice here there's not even a bed. This is Pret Boer. He was born as a slave around 1799, and he was a laborer, so he didn't interact with the main house. Hence, he never got any passed down furniture or anything like that. A little bit harder life here. Well, a lot harder life here. This is Amelia's slave quarters. Her and her 5 children would live in this space. This is inside the sick house. On the back wall there are some of the ailments that they may have ended up here for. But really it's just one of the larger bunkhouses with some walls removed and a lot of beds. This wall was very moving. Between 1836 and the Civil War, over 220 names are written here of those that were enslaved in Oak Alley. At some point in our travels, we learned that they build houses where there's oak trees because the oak trees won't stand for any water. So if there's oak trees, that means the Mississippi floods, etc., don't come to this area. So as you can tell, these grounds are covered in huge oak trees. So this area never floods.
So we had a good time in New Orleans, visiting Bourbon Street and the French Quarters and having our beignets. That was definitely fun. I don't know if I would want to go back there with an RV, because in the RV campground, you pretty much had to stay in the RV campground. It was not a great area. There was the wire all along the fence. What's it called?
Razor wire.
Razor wire. Mm-hmm. And the paperwork they give you, the first thing they tell you is that when you go into New Orleans, it's not very safe. And you need to be very careful and you need to be aware of your surroundings. So, we couldn't even go for a walk outside of the RV park. And so we took an Uber to downtown New Orleans, which was a good way to do it because you wouldn't have wanted to drive down there. I think maybe if I was ever going to go again, I would want to go and actually stay in a hotel. It's a party atmosphere. It's a little on the dirty side. Although we did meet a lovely couple that lived there, and they loved it. They walk everywhere and tons of entertainment. So
we've taken a side road off the main streets, and this is just a pretty cool neighborhood down here.
like with everything.
You always have to be aware of your surroundings there.
And that's probably anywhere you go, but especially there.
So we're driving down this Highway 90, I believe it is. And we've got this beautiful sandy beach here on the Gulf of Mexico. But what we've learned is this is an all man-made beach. So my understanding is what they've done is they've dredged the sand and then dumped it up on the beach here to give it this nice white sandy beach. And then there's little spots like right here that you can stop and enjoy the beach.
And then there's all these beautiful houses on our left.
The other side is beautiful houses. I'm not so sure they're a little pushed back in the moment. I'm not sure if I can get any of them. Out for a beautiful walk along the Biloxi coastline. So we made it to Mississippi. Quite the difference from New Orleans. We're out walking along the beachfront. It's behind me here. Feel completely safe, which is a little bit of a difference from New Orleans. But this tree is really cool. Let's see if I can show you here. It's carved. There's a bird there, and there's a. It's an angel. Okay. Angel tree, and there's another one here. So the story behind this tree is it's the tree of life, because during the Katrina, when it came blasting through here, people literally were hanging on to this tree for dear life while the hurricane raged. Pretty incredible. So we've only been in this town, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and we're so impressed with this town. This gal stopped and talked to us for a while and told us all the places to go, told us about that tree. You know, when we see somebody in the front of their house or in their yard area, they wave to us without us having to wave first.
They're very nice.
Very nice.
And see these lights? They have all these lights with a little flickering flame. I want that on our porch.
Uh-huh. People that drive by regularly just stop and say, hey, go ahead, cross the street. You look like you want to. It's amazing. This town is so friendly.
And we're actually out walking in the neighborhood where we were staying at in New Orleans in our RV park. We were locked in. The fence had the, what's it called? The
razor wire across the top of the fence.
It was like, okay, I guess we're not going for any walks around here.
Yeah.
Pretty scary when the first thing they tell you on the paperwork is, New Orleans is very dangerous. Please know your surroundings at all times. It's like, okay.
This is a beautiful town.
It's very cute.
Bay St. Louis. Oh my gosh, we pulled into this place and we pulled in here with the trailer. There's hardly enough room for a car. as the sun sets, it's time to say goodbye this week. If you enjoyed our videos, please hit subscribe, and the like button's always fun to see. People even in cars are stopping and saying, "Oh, cross the street, no problem. I'll wait and stop and wait for you." Wait and stop and wait for you. That was really good. Let's try that one again.
The houses are really cute.